Woo, we are live. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing?
Yes, and welcome all the new members. We have a lot of new people in our community.
Yeah, we have a lot of new people. We made a huge announcement last week about the transition from being titled the Paleo Secret community to moving over to Native Path. And I first want to thank everybody for understanding and being on board with this. I think the feedback has been nothing but positive. Everyone seems super excited. We're super excited. Yeah, as you mentioned, we got a lot of new people coming in, which is nice because it's always, as long as we're having new people come in, that means we're continuing to reach more people and able to share more information that's going to get people to a healthy state and a happy state and taking responsibility for their life and moving away from, treating symptoms and not feeling happy, not feeling comfortable in their own skin. So I'm super excited about this. So.
I am as well. I tell you, it is the best part of this job is to see the transformation that people go through, hear their stories. Like that is so rewarding in its own. Like I love seeing like when Henry just posted his lab reports, how they changed, and it's
Yeah.
so powerful, so motivating for me and everyone in the community. So I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's super awesome. And I'm already seeing people that are coming in who have purchased one of our supplements kind of see those stories and they're going, wow, what did they do? And, we have these 30-day challenge programs, whether it's our paleo program, our keto program, and the upcoming native body reset program. But these are our transformational programs where, for 30 days, you're committing to eating in a very healthy way, getting rid of toxic foods. And that's going to help you get better results from whatever supplement you may be using. Those supplements are great, but can't supplement your way out of a bad diet. Like we'll say that 100 million times. And your lifestyle and your nutrition, your mindset, these things are so important. So, what this is a hub for complete transformation, at least a start, for you to get going. And as long as we continue to share these great stories like Henry did and so many other people posting before and after pictures and helping each other, like that's how we do it. We do it. And all of it is welcome. All of it is welcome. Successes, failures, everything. So. Yeah. Awesome. Well, today I want to talk about how to stop self-sabotage. And this is getting into more of the mindset stuff and self-empowerment and taking responsibility. And it's really the area where I feel most transformation truly takes place. And it's the thing that is most difficult for us to tap into because we're very concerned with the what, and not necessarily how to actually make permanent change, and transform our lives and truly eat a different way, act a different way, take on new habits. I could just give you a list of, hey, eat these foods and don't eat these foods. I gave it to 100 people and it could be the perfect list of like the perfect diet for them that could transform their life. But like 3 people will actually take on that thing and like do it and make that change. And the reason why the other 97 would not is because of these things that we'll be talking about today. It's because of self-sabotage, and it comes in the form of limiting beliefs. And when I refer to self-sabotage, I refer to this thing that shows up anytime we're trying to improve our life. Anytime, like point A to point B, and that could be in any area, right? It could be in our health, like we're mostly referring to here, and losing weight or overcoming a certain health issue or anything like that. But it could also show up in our jobs, trying to improve our career. It could also happen with relationships. If we have a family member or a friend or a colleague or anything like that we're having difficulty with, and we want to get somewhere with that relationship, but there's something that prevents moving forward. And it's not so much like, hey, like I said, here's the information of what you need to do. It's recognizing how these things show up, the underlying thoughts and beliefs behind them. Really where those come from, getting clear on the impacts and taking responsibility and choosing something new, so we want to make sure that you're not sitting there in front of the ice cream bottle, at 2 a.m. in the morning, like, how did I get here? That's a good example of self-sabotage. So let's talk about some more examples of how it shows up, because the more you see these examples, the more you can look at your own life and your own patterns and go, oh, I'm doing it there. So one of them is the fear of failure. A lot of people, they come into the challenge and they're like, I'm afraid, because they've tried things in the past. So again, they're bringing the past into the present, making that create their reality. So in doing so, it prevents them from taking any risk. People like to have safety and security. And this is one of the things I'll talk about, is this this need for protection, mistakes, looking bad in front of others. We fail to plan ahead. That's one example of self-sabotage. We're unable oftentimes to say no to others. This is a huge one we see all the time when it comes to my partner, my spouse just have this little cookie, or my coworker who brought this cake, or, my grandma who made this really special, pie for Christmas. It's like these things, unable to say no and set a proper boundary. So boundaries are really important. It affects our decisions, think critically. It allows us to not be flexible. We also set unrealistic expectations. That's one way to self-sabotage and say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 30 days. And it's not realistic. And then they're setting themselves up for failure.
Right.
And sabotage. And it can often happen as a critical voice in our head that's always judging, always analyzing, saying you're not good enough, someone else is doing it better, you're always going to be this way. So that critical voice is typically there. Another form is complaining. Complaining is a classic example of being a victim and not taking responsibility and projecting your circumstance onto others. So to say, I'm this way because of you. I'm this way because of my job or my circumstance. That's why I'm this way. It's not my fault. It's your fault. And another thing I'll talk about is like, no one makes you feel the way you feel. No circumstance makes you feel the way you feel. Like you make you feel the way you feel. You know what I mean? So it's taking ownership. And sometimes that's hard to do because there's often a little child inside of us that does not want to take responsibility and wants to stay that way. Right. So again, as I'm talking, a lot of things will come up, and that's completely normal. These emotions, but again, it's all poor attitudes, debilitating emotions, just unhelpful thoughts that continue to sabotage the mind. And it also shows up, with binge eating, and negotiating. There's often times in negotiating, say, oh, you had a little bit. Like, what's a little bit more gonna do? It's not gonna hurt. Next thing you know, like the whole tub of ice cream is gone. And we're not really taking action in alignment to what we wanted to take, right? So all of that is normal. Most people in the modern world are still operating in a very unconscious state, I'd say. It's important to realize that 95% of the thoughts and the actions that we take and the feelings that we experience are coming from the unconscious mind. Things that happen in our very early part of our life, often when we're young children, and for most of us, there's a wounded child inside of us that had things happen to us and was trying to please our parents, and our parents were doing the best they could, but they're not perfect, so they make mistakes. And because they made mistakes, we picked up patterns, to try to please them. And oftentimes there's that wounded child, but then there's this other part, there's like this teen inside of us that try to compensate and protect that wounded child. And we hold on to these things. And it turns into a way we create patterns in our mind, these habits, and we carry them into our adult years when we're supposed to be adults, but we're still acting from these lower unconscious places. So we want to bring awareness to all that. The more awareness we can bring to it, the more we can be clear of the impact it's having on us, to lie from the thoughts and emotions and feelings around it and take responsibility and get a new action. So how does that sound? Kind of crazy?
It is crazy. And that also brings me to one of our main things too, that a lot of people just focus on weight loss. It's like they get into this, and then they, start doing another thing, which is comparing themselves to other people. And the thing you got to understand with this program is, people on the program, is it's so important not to focus on weight loss, because then you're going to be completely blind to all the other changes that are happening to your body. Because you might not be aware that, hey, I'm getting better sleep, or hey, I have more energy, or my skin's looking better because I'm drinking more water. So it's super important for us not to be so centered on one little thing and focus on the bigger picture, because you might not be aware of what's happening to your body. So
yeah. That's a great point. I'm really glad you brought that up, because weight loss is that measurement thing, right? And I think it's good if we dissect that a little bit. Like, so let's say someone's eating a certain way and they're doing all the things and they're feeling better and their skin's better, their energy's up, they're getting off medications, but their weight is like, they only lost 2 pounds, right? And a narrative will go off. This is the negotiating thing that I'm talking about. The narrative will go off and it'll start talking. It will say, You're always going to be this way.
Mm.
You're never going to change. You're always going to be overweight. He's never going to look at you. You're never going to be sexy. No one's
Right.
ever going to think you're special, right? There's a sense of worth that's tied into that. And then you said the other thing, which is comparison, you know, because we're comparing creatures. Like, we compare ourselves to others. And the funny thing is, like, the others are comparing themselves to us all the time. And we're just comparing back and forth and back and forth. And these are the things that are underneath, that we bury, that we hide, that we suppress, that we deny. So it's a really powerful thing to say, there's a part of me, and there's something inside of me that is comparing myself to that other person. And I have it, and you have it, and everybody has it, and it's completely normal. We're not special snowflakes, and like all of a sudden we're the only ones that do this. So the more we put this, the more we shine light on this, you could say the more we shine light on the darkness, the less control it has over us. And then we're able to take control, right? So another thing that this comes down to is addiction, right? So most people are addicted to these bad habits. You know, we get addicted to sugar, we get addicted to drugs and alcohol. We also get addicted to certain ways of being that are not helpful to us. Sometimes it looks like it's helpful. You know, some people are completely addicted to exercise. You know, some people are health phobics, and that's an addiction too, right? But all these different addictions are really secondary addictions to the one primary addiction that all humans are dealing with, which is the addiction to thinking, right? We're completely addicted to thinking. And this is a part of the process of our own evolution as humans, right? Whether you believe in evolution or you look in like the scriptures, like we came from a place where we were not thinking, we were just living on instinct, and something evolved with our brain, and we stepped into knowledge of good and evil, right? We entered into a new era of our consciousness, the era of the intellect, right? And now, because we have this technology, right? These smartphones and the internet and social media and all these things, it's coming at us like a zillion miles an hour, and it's doing the thinking for us, right? It's programming our brain. We're becoming conditioned, and we're becoming conditioned to the degree that we have no control over ourselves. This is why we wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning in front of ice cream and don't know why. We can't lose weight. They told me to eat this, they told me to eat that, but I still am in this position. And it's because of this unconscious programming that's running the show. So I say all this because this is the most important thing. This is where the true transformation happens on the being level, on the deep level of stepping back from the thoughts and the feelings and becoming aware of it, watching them and taking responsibility for them. And we want to be functional adults, happy, functional adults that are doing the right things, right? So as I mentioned, the origins of these things typically happen from our early childhood or like our teen years, right? And there's certain needs that are core to all of us, right? There's needs of worth, there's needs of safety, there's needs of perfection, and there's needs of just neediness in general. These are core issues that we're all dealing with. A wounded child will typically develop core issues of feeling less than, feeling exposed, not feeling safe, right? Feeling defective, like I'm broken, and also feeling needy. I can't do this on my own. I need someone else to take care of me. And the teen will compensate, right? So a teen will often feel better than, I'm better than you. You know, and a teen will be closed off. I don't need any help. I can do this all on my own. A teen will also strive for perfection. I have to do everything perfect. I have to be right, and I don't need any help. So it's needless. So these are all patterns and things that will run the show through our thoughts and our feelings that dictate our behaviors, right? So what we want to do is become aware of any triggering thoughts or emotions that might be tied into those things and step in as a functional adult. Right? What is a functional adult? A functional adult sees equal worth between themselves and others. So going back to that comparison thing, it's like you may be this way or you may be that way, but I see equal worth in both of us. And also, when it comes to setting boundaries, a functional adult is good at both protecting themselves and containing themselves. So protecting themselves from the thoughts, feelings, and opinions, actions of others, but also containing themselves. In other words, not expressing any thoughts, feelings, or actions that might be offensive to others. And then an adult is realistic. You know, a realistic adult doesn't go, I'm going to try to lose 50 pounds in 30 days. A realistic adult says, I'm going to do this step by step. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to, you know, if I 5-10 pounds, I'm just going to be consistent and move forward. That's a realistic adult. And also a functioning adult is aware of their needs and wants, and they're able to express it. So oftentimes there's a need that's not being met and we're not expressing it. So we bury things and hide and suppress it, and we end up self-sabotaging, right? So again, the greatest addiction is the addiction to thinking. What we're trying to do here is disidentify the thoughts and the feelings tied to that identity and become aware of it and act in a more responsible way. Another thing I want to add here is that when it comes to an identity, and that's what's happening here, is there's an old identity that's trying to be broken and a new, stronger, powerful identity, the real you, that's trying to emerge. When that's happening, the old identity will do everything it can to try to stay alive. It will kick, it will scream because it feels threatened, right? So like a child, it will kick and scream and do everything it can to sabotage the mission, right? And to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So it's important to be aware of that and know that it's completely normal, right? How does that all sit with you? Making sense so far?
It does. And I like to say that be patient with yourself. That's another thing people don't do, is they rush it, like, why isn't it happening? Why isn't it happening? And then they look for ways to, okay, it's not working, so I'm going to find something else to do. So be patient, understand. Like, there's a huge thing I see on our Facebook community is there's a difference between someone posting, hey, I see a lot of people losing weight. I've only lost 5 pounds. It's not working. And then someone with the mindset, hey, I've lost 5 pounds. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there. So there's a huge difference between those two posts to show you the mindset and what you're allowing yourself to do, and be patient, understand the process. It didn't happen overnight, you know, so definitely be very aware of your mindset and your intentions, and it'll definitely get you there.
Yes, I think that's huge. That's a good opportunity to talk about neural pathways and how they get formed, right? So we have these brain waves, right? These neural pathways, and you can think of like a line, right? And let's say we have a habit. Let's say we have a habit of, like, every day at 10 a.m. I go for a cookie, right? And it's like a divot in the neural pathway, right? And each time we go get the cookie at 10 a.m., we form a deeper divot, right? And a deeper divot and a deeper divot. We have people coming in with years and years and years of eating the proverbial cookie at 10 a.m., right? So what we're doing here when we're trying to create a new habit is fill up that divot, right?
Right.
Put in a new pattern, right? We're stopping that action, right? So each time we stop doing it, we fill up that divot. And then what we're also trying to do at the same time is create a new habit, right? A new divot, like a good habit that's going to help improve our life. So instead of the cookie every day, we're going to go for like a salad or something like that that's healthy for us. And it's doing it consistently. So this change does not happen in an instant. It's not like you can just do it one time.
Right.
And all of a sudden that neural pathway is regrouped. It takes patterns and time to fill up one divot and create a new one, right? So it's really important, right? So let me kind of give you an example in my own life when I was self-sabotaging myself and the process of how I changed it and ultimately corrected it. And I think as I'm doing this, I want people to get in touch with areas where something similar might be happening in their own life, right? So my whole life, I've been having, up until a certain point, I had a voice in my head that would say, how dare you speak up? You know, how dare you actually do something that's good and can help people, right? And there's lots of baggage behind this, right? Like, what I have to offer is not good enough, someone else is doing it better, yada, 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 right? So where does this come from, right? Well, it comes from my childhood, right? So here's an example. When I was attending kindergarten, right, and showed up at the first day of class, I quickly realized that the other kids knew something I didn't know, and that was how to read, right? I did not know how to read. So, and I didn't know how to read because my mom and my dad never read to me, you know? So I was really good at math. I was really good at objects and things like that. When it came to reading, I was like, I don't know what's going on. So everyone was ahead of me. And I started to feel really stupid in class when they asked us to read. So I didn't like feeling stupid. I didn't like feeling dumb because sometimes the other kids would laugh. So what happened was anytime there was questions, I would stay quiet. I would shut down, right? Because I didn't want to look dumb, right? So that impacted me throughout my life, right? And it really showed up in situations when it came to me stepping out and speaking up about health and nutrition, right? So I spent all my time studying nutrition, like when I was a physical therapist and going home to home and seeing all the bad things that was happening to people as a consequence of eating bad. And I was applying it to my own life. But when it came to expressing that and sharing that with others and teaching them, I would shut down because I would always say someone else is doing it better. What I have is not worthy, right? And I would feel an incredible amount of fear, like lots of feelings and emotions and thoughts that I'm not good enough, yada, yada, yada. So it took a lot of work to realize where this came from. And what I'm gonna kind of walk you through is a correction. So, and I say that because a lot of you are dealing with something similar. A lot of you are dealing with some sort of thought or feeling and emotion that's keeping you from becoming a better human, or it might be creating a better relationship or getting a better job or improving your health or whatever, right? There's something going on. So what's helpful, what I did and what you can do as well, is to write to your younger self, right? Where this pattern was picked up, right? And really look at those core issues that we talked about and what's not being met, whether it's protection, safety, needs, anything like that. But for me, it's having a conversation with my younger self, this shut down version of myself who picked up this pattern, and saying it's completely understandable that you feel the way you feel, right? Because your parents did not teach you what they probably should have taught you. And it's not their fault because they weren't taught either, right? But it's completely normal that you would feel the feelings that you're feeling and you took those actions and you had the impact. So from now on, and this is me, the functional adult, observing and talking to my younger self. So from now on, I got this. I will be doing the speaking for us. I will be saying what's true for us and creating a new reality for us. And that allowed me to disassociate from these negative thoughts and feelings that were holding me back, right? And it also at the same time allowed me to step back from a greater position of power and awareness and take new actions and form a new neurological pathway, doing it consistently. And it doesn't mean that they're early on. So what I started to do then was taking action. I started giving presentations at local gyms. I started writing blog posts. I started subscribing myself to bigger stages and things like that. And now we've impacted close to 3 million people, right? But none of that happens if I stay in small child victim mode, right?
Right.
And again, most of us are operating from a child framework. We're in victim mode and we haven't quite learned how to take responsibility. And I want to be clear that when we step into our power, it not only positively impacts us, positively impacts everyone around us, starting with our family, our friends, our colleagues, our community, right? So there's a tipping point effect that I want everybody to be clear of, and they have the power to change within themselves, right? So what I recommend you do is write a little love letter to yourself, to your younger self, and say things like, it's understandable why you would be that way, because this happened, that's why you felt that way. But from now on, this is how I'm going to be. This is how we're going to be as the functional adult. And in doing so, you're taking responsibility, putting yourself out of victim mode, and radically reducing the chance that you're going to self-sabotage yourself, which is so important,
Right. I like that, because a lot of people will ask questions in our community. They'll say, I know this is silly, or I probably shouldn't ask this question. And the thing is, you should always ask it. If you're curious, ask it, because how else are you going to learn? And then also other people in the community might be having the same questions, but they might be embarrassed to ask. So when you guys start seeing that each other will ask questions, you're not only learning from each other, but you're also seeing that, hey, I have a voice, I can speak up. So it's very, very important, because I think we've all been there where we don't want to ask, we don't want to look silly.
Right. People don't want to look silly. They don't want to look bad. Humans have an innate desire to want to look good, and they have a fear of looking bad. So what we do is we hide, we isolate, we don't say anything, and there's no progress anywhere, right? And the brave one, the courageous one, is the one who speaks up, asks the question, right? And it's so powerful because, like you said, people will see themselves in you. Yeah. You will see yourself in others when they do it, and you will thank them, and you'll kind of go, oh, thank you so much for saying that. I was actually dealing with the same thing. We're much more alike than we think. We're all dealing with stuff. We might put on masks and a lot of makeup and pretend, yada, yada, yada. We're all dealing with stuff. This is the core stuff that is driving the show. Right. So another issue with all this is creating healthy boundaries in our life. So a boundary is really protecting yourself from the thoughts, feelings, and actions of another person if they're infringing upon your personal space. And it's, like I said, it's also containing yourself and not expressing any thoughts, feelings, or actions that might infringe on someone else's personal space. So it's honoring those things. And great examples like when it shows up, going to work and everyone has cake on Friday and just saying like, that's not what I'm trying to do. Or, Christmas is coming up and grandma's going to make her special pie that she really means a lot, but she also puts like a lot of toxic fats in there.
Mm-hmm.
And or the husband might be saying like, oh, just one little piece won't hurt.
Yes.
It's not going to kill you, but yeah, little by little it might, and it might not feel good, but it's honoring your space, right? And setting up that boundary and really claiming it. And some practices I really suggest people is to check in with yourself often. Again, addiction to thinking is only there if you're not creating awareness around it. So the more you can do things like journal and check in with yourself, like I always do a PIES check-in, like physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual, like PIES. What am I feeling physically? What am I feeling intellectually? What's going on with me emotionally? What's going on with me spiritually? Writing these things out, noticing if there's any big things that are happening, any triggers, any triggering thoughts that are causing unpleasant feelings or, self-sabotage or anything like that. And then writing out a little note to yourself and, recognizing where the origins of these thoughts and these patterns come from, and then stepping in and taking responsibility. And you do that over and over and over again. And you always do your best because you will make mistakes, but that's the practice. That's the way that we get better. And this is kind of the real transformation on the soul level, on the being level, right?
I like that. And then putting like little post-its on your mirror in the morning, little self-affirmation where, today's going to be a great day, start your day positive. So those are little tricks that, or put them in your car right when you go start your car, you have a little like positive reminder to boost yourself up for the day. And then just keep telling yourself that throughout the day. Lots of things to do. And I have to tell you, there's a comment that popped up that said, wow, you just nailed it. You just nailed it in 5 minutes. A year's worth of therapy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, like I said, these are the things that are like most exciting to me.
Right.
I get, you can see I perk up. I get more excited about this than things like gluten and toxic fats, because honestly, that stuff is like way secondary,
right.
Way secondary. And it's also why you hear a lot of people who do go to therapy or who they do some powerful workshop or retreat or something. They got absolutely no information on food or exercise whatsoever, but you check in with these people who had profound experiences and like 2 or 3 months later, and they've lost 30, 40 pounds, right? It's because they've empowered themselves to take different actions. Remember, most of us are rolling through life as unconscious children, and something else is driving the boat. And often it's a modern society that's conditioning us through this technology, right? So it's so important to step out of that, disassociate ourselves with the thoughts and feelings, observe it, create a new reality for ourselves. Because our thoughts really are, our reality is a byproduct of our thoughts. Our thoughts create reality, right? Exactly. So it's so important to be aware of the compulsive addiction to thinking, and step back from that and disassociate with it. So the
mind
awesome.
Is powerful. So it's always something nice to be remembered of. Yeah,
super duper powerful. Awesome. Well, if anybody has any more questions or comments on that, happy to have a conversation. Is there any questions that popped up beforehand, or?
I have a few that popped up on the feed. And the first one says, question regarding our probiotics. They grow in your gut, right? So after you get some good ones going, do you really need to take the pill every day?
What's more important than, I would say, on some level, it's a good idea to take some form of probiotics every day. What's a good thing to do is to get a diverse strain of probiotics, right? So one way is to get that was with the Native Path probiotic. It's a super awesome probiotic. It has some of the most effective strains out there. It's very diverse. It has over 50 billion CFUs. So it's a super high quality probiotic, but it's also good to get a diverse spectrum in your microbiome with things like fermented sauerkraut, raw kimchi. Some of the fermented drinks are really good. Like kombucha is a really good drink if you're okay, and like it has a little bit of sugar but not too much. So that's the main thing. But being consistent with good quality probiotics is super important, especially considering the context of where most people are coming from when they've been eating lots of sugar, and there's a lot of bacteria in our gut that's been feeding off that sugar, right? So when we're doing something like the 30-day challenge, a lot of that bad bacteria is dying off, and we want to repopulate the good with a good diverse spectrum of probiotics. So yeah, I would say take it consistently, but also add in other fermented foods and drinks.
Now, have you heard of the food called natto?
Yes, yeah. That's a Japanese fermented food. It's great. So natto is good. Kimchi is another Japanese fermented food. So we have a lot of kimchi. Like Brent and I do a lot of kimchi, sauerkraut. Not so much natto. Is like we haven't. It's not. Doesn't seem like it's readily available.
Okay.
So we mostly do sauerkraut. I always do a probiotic in the morning. Yeah, those are the main things. Those are the main things we do. But yeah, being consistent with that stuff is super important.
Definitely. All right. I'll jump into the questions now that we got. So
Awesome.
I did this one last week from Oprah that I told her I would revisit this week. She says, I know that canned food is bad for you, but sometimes are okay, like tomato paste and artichokes. Please go over what are some of the yes and no's and how many eggs a day is okay.
Yeah, so I'll start with the eggs. I mean, regarding the eggs, I'd always encourage people to try to get the highest quality eggs, like from the farmer's market or cage-free, organic, not injected with hormones, antibiotics, stuff like that. And the amount of eggs per day would be about the amount of eggs you can fit in your hand, right? So I can fit like 6, 7. If I'm really trying real hard, I can fit 8. And sometimes I do eat 6 to 8 eggs in one serving. But for most women, I'd say it's probably like 2 or 3 is right around there. So that's a good amount. I wouldn't worry. The thing with eggs is I would encourage people not to have them every single day. I think when people are starting out, it's good to keep things simple and create good habits. But I also see people having eggs for breakfast or lunch every single day. So it's important to remember that anything you eat consistently, often, you'll eventually develop an allergy to it. So it's good to rotate your foods and keep that in there. But in general, I'd say about as many eggs as you can fit in your hand would be good. In terms of canned food, it's kind of all bad. To be honest with you, I don't know. I can necessarily say like, oh, tomato paste is okay, artichokes is okay, but like olives are not. Like, there's really no difference. There's no distinction there. I would say, really try to minimize the canned food. There's a lot of heavy metals that leach into that food. A lot of that stuff sits on the shelf for a long time. And that those heavy metals get saturated into the juices and the liquids within that can, and those heavy metals also lead to a lot of health problems, specifically neurological health problems. Like the cognition stuff, in terms of memory, our ability to solve problems and stuff. So I really encourage people to minimize cans if they can. There's some things that like coconut milk, it's kind of hard to find it without it, so that's fine. But like really try to minimize all that. Other thing is, always try to find guar gum free canned goods, if you can. Like there's coconut milk that has guar gum and there's coconut milk that doesn't have guar gum. And you definitely want the stuff that doesn't have guar gum if you can find it. But same things there, if you are going to do the canned stuff, try to get organic. If you absolutely can't afford anything else, or like a lot of people are trying to build a supply in case the world comes to an end and they want canned foods. And I would say, in that situation, it's okay. If you're trying to prepare for the apocalypse, it's understandable. I wouldn't worry too much about it. You just get what you got to get. But I'd say there's really no distinction in terms of like this food's better, that food's better. Just do the best you can, stick to organic, look for guar gum free, and do your best.
Right. You can buy a lot of stuff in glass jars, like olives, artichokes, sun-dried tomatoes. Those all come in glass jars these days.
Yeah, glass jars would be better. And also, frozen foods are good too. Frozen foods are really much better than the canned stuff, and you can still store them for long periods of time. We bought an external freezer. We got that for like $100 at Home Depot, and we buy lots of meats, lots of frozen veggies. And the frozen veggies actually are generally more nutrient dense than the veggies that you get, say, in the fresh produce area, because they're picked from the ground and they're put in the frozen container and then they come to your door. So they're not losing any nutrients or vitamins. So in that way, they're actually more nutrient dense. But like that's a much better option than canned foods, Yeah.
Wonderful. We have 2 more.
Awesome.
All right. The next one is from Mary. She goes, after the 30-day challenge, you talked about reintroducing foods to see how they impact you personally. How do you know if there is a negative impact What kind of symptoms should I be looking for, and how long will it take to show up?
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great question. So, so for those who don't know, what we're doing with our 30-day challenges, and whether it's keto or paleo or native body reset, we're asking you to remove most of the problematic foods that can potentially harm you, right? So, processed and refined sugar, conventional dairy, a lot of these toxic fats, but it also means potential gut irritating foods like grains, so bread, legumes, so beans, and we want to remove those, try to create a clean slate. In other words, minimize inflammation as much as possible, get out of that world of toxicity. And the way that we see if we are reacting to any of these foods is introduce them or reintroduce them one at a time. So let's say you go through the 30-day challenge, you've noticed your energy's up, you've lost weight, your skin issues are better, you're sleeping better, you're just generally feeling good. Like, you want to make sure you get to that place first. And then when you're at that place, you can reintroduce foods one at a time and see what happens. So let's take, for example, I would start with a non-gluten containing grain. So I would start with something like quinoa, right? And take that quinoa one day and have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So hit it pretty hard. And then go back to eating like a 30-day challenge type food or meal plan for the next 3 days. And that's that 3-day window. You want to see if you negatively react to that quinoa, right? And if you do, you can be pretty sure that you're reacting to non-gluten containing grains, right? So you can mark that off the list, like, probably shouldn't be having non-gluten containing grains. And let's say on that 4th day, because you've just done 3 days, you want to see if you're reacting to dairy. So you have whole milk, right? And let's say you have whole milk for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Again, hit it hard. The next 3 days, eat clean, 30 days, no grains and legumes or dairy, and see if you react negatively. And these reactions that I'm talking about could particularly come in the form of digestion, So that's like probably the best place to look, is to look at your stools. I know this is gross, but like, if your stools get funky all of a sudden, like either loose or you're constipated, that's a clear indication that you're not digesting these foods properly and they're possibly harming your gut. And they're probably not a good idea for you to continue. Or it means you need more time to heal your gut for you to be able to absorb these foods. So like more time eating a clean 30-day challenge type meal. And you just continue that process. So I would go non-gluten containing grains, dairy, and then I would do beans, like legumes, and I would do gluten containing grains, right? So rye, oats, and barley, those type of things. But that's how you tell, right? And you can log your food, mark your symptoms, and you can clearly get an idea of whether or not you're reacting to it. And the way I'm laying out for you here is a much more effective tool than doing a food sensitivity test, right? So like, I did a food sensitivity test and it showed I was like reacting to this, this, and this. And like, those things don't bother me at all. Like, I have no problems with it. But if I eat like a tomato, which did not show up in the food sensitivity test, I get these whelps, right, in my lip, right? So these reactions can come not just in digestion, but you'll see it like on your skin. You'll notice changes in your energy, your mood, how you sleep. Like, all these things correlate to your reactive level. And this is cheap too. It doesn't cost you anything, right? The food sensitivity test can cost like $300, $400, out of pocket. So try those out, and that's how I'll go about doing it.
Perfect.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah. I know a lot of members will say, hey, I had this, kind of food and I got a headache, or my stomach bloated, or I got really, really gassy. So there's lots of different things your body will tell you when it doesn't want that food item in your stomach.
Yeah, for sure. It's just reactions, But like I said, get to the baseline of feeling good first.
Right.
That way you can really tell, You'll be able to tell really easily. So that's how it works.
Perfect. And then we have one more question from Cheryl. She goes, I'm currently in rehab after a large surgery on my hip. I try as I might to stay paleo, but it has been totally impossible. The best I can do is try to get a sweet potato, fish, or chicken that's breaded, slimy salad, and fresh fruit. I'm here for 10 days. The staff tries to help me, but I feel I'm over demanding. Most of the veggies are canned. Yuck. Please help.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like she's still in the hospital.
Yeah.
And she's not able to control her environment, and may not be able to for a while. And I would say, I would first say, yeah, you're right. Like, the food in hospitals, it's really sad, you guys. Like, I used to work in the hospital I first worked in a neurological setting, then I worked in acute care setting. And it is unreal how bad the food is in our health, within our healthcare system, like where we stay. And I think just to comment on it, I think it's a good example of our values in our current healthcare system. It's not realizing that nutrition plays like a radical impact in terms of how we feel in our healing. So oftentimes you see the absolute worst foods in the environments where we need the most nutritious foods, and it's really sad.
Right.
And I completely understand. In this situation, I would say continue to speak for what you want. You know, going back to the boundaries thing, like talking to the nurses, and whether or not they're annoyed or not is not really your problem.
Yeah.
You know, like if you want, you just keep asking for what you need. And this goes back to being a functional adult, right? Being aware of what you need and speaking up for what you want. And whether they get annoyed or not is none of your business. It's like, do not worry about that. So continue to speak up, and in doing so, that allows you to do the best you can. The other things I would suggest is if you can get some family members to bring some food for you, that would be super helpful. So there's lots of options of things that can, you know, you can ask this person over here or ask that person over there to make you some food and bring it to you. For people who are visiting, that's one option. You can ask them to bring you foods that are more like safe to store, like so jerky, apples that can last long, bananas, things like that, some nuts, some seeds. Those things can kind of hang around you for a long period of time and you can eat them. But I would say after that, don't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Like just do your best and don't put too much pressure on it, right? Don't think that like this is like, oh, don't start telling yourself the narrative like I'm always going to be this way because I can't eat this too hard, too much. Like you've got something else going on right now. You know, if you've just had like a very powerful hip surgery, especially if you're still in the hospital post 10 days, that's a lot going on. So don't try to do too much. You know, there's always that one thing process. Like worry about this one thing the most first, get this under control, then go home where you have a new environment. And then that's the new one thing. But like work on this one first before you go to the next one. You can't worry about the next one while you're in this one. You know, so really just take your time. Like you said early on, just be patient, just do your best. And, you know, you'll be walking again, you'll be moving again, and you can control your food environment 100%. Right now, you have to maybe just accept that it won't be perfect, but just do your best. That's it. You know,
yeah, don't be shy. Speak up though.
Right. Speak up. That's kind of the theme of all this, you know, speak up.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important that we express ourselves, but like I said, doing so in a way that doesn't infringe upon others' boundaries. But when you're speaking what's true for you, it's really important, you know, when it comes to what you know is right for your health. You know, don't feel selfish about that. It's really important.
It's true. We're our biggest advocate. We got to speak up for ourselves.
Yeah. And so many people just go by this life, letting other people or other things doing the thinking and speaking for them. And that's dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Always a pleasure. Learned so much. I love your energy today, but that concludes all of our questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Great for hosting. And yeah, I will see you soon. We got a Christmas party coming up. Native Path Christmas party.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. We'll have good, healthy food. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. But hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed talking about this stuff because it's kind of what I feel like is most important, things I'm most interested in. So I'd appreciate any comments, questions. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here and have a wonderful day.
Yes, thank you. And it's important because around the holidays, people always assume that all the sugars, all the not good stuff comes out. So it's important to have this come out right now as people understand like when you need that extra little push to stay on track, this is what you need. Go back. I like it.
Awesome, guys. Well, have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.